Yeah, so basically in this session we'll be looking at how you can go about building your first custom ROM. I will be showing you how you can adapt different ROMs devices to a different ROM, and I'll be showing you how to compile extended because I personally maintain that for my device and I'm also in the core team. If you have any questions, please let me know. So, am I audible? Cool, thank you. So, before you start compiling or building Android, you would need a few packages which do not come with your default installation. It could be Linux, Arch, or any other installation. So, there's a developer who goes by the name of Akhil Narang. He has a pretty good he basically has scripts for all the packages that you need for to compile an Android ROM. So what I would recommend you to do is maybe just clone this repository. It's github.com/akhilnarang/scripts, and in the setup folder you have scripts for different Linux distributions. This one is for Ubuntu, similarly this is for Arch, this is for Clear Linux, and so on. So yeah, you basically need Linux to compile a ROM. And like I said, I'll be using extended project extended throughout this session. So basically, to compile a ROM, you first need to sync the ROM sources. So as you can see, Android ROM has too many repositories to manually go clone each one of them. So to fix this, Google actually has a tool called Repo, which basically runs on top of Git, and it is a version control kind of a tool, which also helps them to push stuff to the Gerrit platform. So here, basically, when you start, you have to initialize the repo. So yeah, you just run this in your shell, and you have the manifest dot. Basically, this most ROMs have the repository called as manifest. Lineage calls it Android. So yeah, most of them call it manifest. So you just go here and first of all clone the whole source code. So what exactly happens when you do that? So first this the okay sorry yeah yes, you do need Linux for this. If you do not have storage in a laptop to install Linux, compiling ROM itself you would need like 200 to 300 gigabytes of free space. So oh yeah, and one more thing which I forgot. Yeah, one more thing which I forgot to mention is you even need a pretty powerful machine in order to compile a ROM. You need RAM with abundance of 16 gigabytes, 250 to 300 GB free space, and it's a very time consuming and processor heavy task. You would be compiling your own Android flavor, own flavor of Android for your phone. So, have you heard about custom ROMs? Okay, so custom ROMs are basically Android, you could say distributions or AOSP distributions. AOSP is again Android open source project that is maintained by Google. As you know, Android is an operating system released by Google. So every year whenever they release a new Android version, they upload all the source codes in their own version control. They have their own Git. They don't use GitHub. Yeah, so basically when they upload their own version, when they upload the version of the source code of Android, what developers do is they fork it and they add their own features to it. So yeah, custom ROMs are basically forks of the Android open source project with more customization options, uh, probably more privacy and even security. Yeah, so that's what a custom ROM is. Android is open source, but the version of Android that you get on your phone, the final product, things in all of the things in that will not be open source. Okay, so I'd probably show you screenshots. Just give me a moment. No, no problem. I should have maybe actually started off with that. My bad. Not. Yeah, so basically you can have your own themes. Then Okay, so we don't have. Hmm. How do I show you features? Okay, so basically, you see how your battery icon looks on your phone, right? So you could change that to maybe say a circle. You could just make a you could completely remove it and just display text, or you could just show nothing and put a battery bar. So the length of the battery bar would indicate how much battery is left. So again, that you could start your battery bar from your left, right, or center. Also, you could change how your lock screen, the clock on your lock screen looks. Then you could change how you interact with your phone. There is something called Slim Recents, which I unfortunately cannot show you right now, but it is basically an alternative to how you would switch to your recent apps of your phone. Then in your power menu, you can add feature options like to take screenshot, to screen record. Yeah, you can show FPS information. So Oxygen OS and all other ROMs by manufacturers are actually closed source. So you cannot compile those ROMs, but you can try to port it to your device. But again, porting is not recommended, as you could probably hard brick your device and end up with your phone as a brick, as a paper brick, paperweight. Yeah. So okay, so I hope you understood what a custom ROM is. I was not very sure how to explain it, but yeah, cool. Okay, so once you clone the manifest, you there's this default.xml which basically clones stuff from AOSP, like I told, which is Android open source project, and Google has their own GitHub alternative where they push the source code. So yeah, these are all the repositories that get synced, and since this is a custom ROM, you can see that there are additional repositories that are synced. In this case, it's Lineage, stuff from Lineage OS and Extended, project Extended. So again, you can look at these XML files and see what they basically sync. Yeah, so like I said, in Lineage OS, it's basically called the repository is called Android and not manifest. Okay, so now you have synced all the repositories, and you basically have your basically have the ROM source on your laptop or your server or wherever you plan to build. So what do you do next? So each device has a unique tree or unique source again, which is basically called device tree. So the device tree basically contains what how the manufacturer shipped the phone with. So in my case, since I have a Poco F1, its code name is Beryllium. So this is my device's device tree. As you can see, it contains stuff about how the partitions are formatted, which partition is mounted where. So if you probably install Linux, you would have mounted one partition as your home partition, one as root partition, one as boot partition. So the device trees contain all the device specific stuff. They also might contain how you want to customize, or how you want to have a sound curve, how you want the speakers to sound. All that stuff can be customized. All the stuff can be changed in the device trees. Then you also have something called common trees. So common trees are basically trees that multiple devices share. So you guys probably know that Poco F1 is just a stripped down version of Mi 8, which was launched in China and worldwide. So yeah, Poco F1, Mi 8, and a few other Xiaomi devices use this common tree. So again, this common tree has your configuration for your fingerprint, FOD, which is basically fingerprint on display, which is not relevant to Poco F1, but again some other 45 devices have it. So how are these named? So Android is basically your root directory where your source code is. A device says that this should go in the device folder. Then again, there should be another folder called Xiaomi, followed by SDM 845. Here stands for Snapdragon 845, and common because these are the common trees. In this case, it would go in a device Xiaomi in the Beryllium folder. So yeah, then also, like I said, custom ROMs have extra features. So this is basically Xiaomi parts. So here, I just have to show you the source code because I cannot show you how it looks. But basically, this contains how how the phone CPU and GPU should throttle or not throttle based on the applications running. So say for example, if you're gaming and you set the thermal profile to gaming, it would probably let your GPU go a boost for longer, thus having lesser frame drops. Then there are permissions, overlays for stuff like FPS. For FPS, you need to have an overlay. For any other on screen thing which you need to show as a floating window needs to have an overlay. So all that stuff will go in the overlay folder. Then you have SE policy. Then you have a folder called SE policy. This basically contains SE policies. SE policies in Android are similar to SE policies in Linux. So what are SE policies? They are basically they defend your Linux or Android installation against harmful apps or software per se. So not every software or app can access everything. So you might not want so we are talking about the system apps. We are not talking about the permissions that you manually grant when you download an app, when you download and install an app. Yeah, so this is the commentary. Then you so to compile a ROM for your device, you basically need the device tree commentary if it exists for your device. You're probably familiar with what a kernel is. Okay, it was right there. Yes, I am. Yeah, so basically the kernel tree contains the whole source code of the kernel that ships with the device. So this the OEMs have to release the source code of the kernel for that device, since the Linux kernel is licensed under GPL. So this you will directly get from the manufacturer. And yeah, so once you have your device trees, common trees and kernel trees, you need something called vendor trees. So back in Android 8, which was Android Oreo, Google implemented something called Project Rebel. So Project Rebel basically separated out the vendor and the device implementations of Android, so it would be easier for manufacturers to release updates quicker. So vendor trees contain the proprietary code for they contain the proprietary code, or how do I say it? They contain not the code. They contain the proprietary pre-compiled binaries that you need in your device in order for it to function. So yeah, these things are not open source, and these have to be extracted from the stock ROM. So Lineage OS uploads their at least the Xiaomi vendor trees on GitLab, because they received strike what is on GitHub. They received a DMCA takedown on GitHub. So here, like I said, they contain a proprietary pre-compiled stuff. So .so files are pre-compiled shims or blobs. So you will not be able to read or understand them. There is no source code here, so you have to use them as it is. So once you have your common trees, device trees, kernel trees and vendor trees synced, you have to adapt those trees. So like I said, every ROM is slightly different. You will have to adapt one ROM's trees to the other ROM's trees. So let's say for example, we take one is the first kind of tree is the device tree, where the device specific configuration is stored. Then there are common trees. So these are common between multiple devices. So if multiple devices from the same manufacturer share the same hardware, or most of the hardware, they're most likely to have common trees. Then there's the kernel tree, which basically has the whole source of the Linux kernel, which the phone ships with, or you would like the phone to ship with. And lastly, there are vendor trees that contain the proprietary pre-compiled binaries that ship with your phone. So these you have to extract from the stock ROM of your device. So you cannot compile these. Okay, so like I was telling, so this is the Lineage OS device tree for my device. So there are multiple differences you might notice. So firstly, there's a file called lineage_beryllium, and if you are building extended, it would be called extended_beryllium. If you are building something like Pixel Experience, it will be called AOSP_beryllium. If you will be building something like Wave OS, it's called Wave_beryllium. So yeah, you'll have to check out with the ROM developers as to what it is called, or just look through the other already existing trees. So there's you also have to change the product name. So yeah, the product name would be called extended_beryllium in case of the extended ROM, and lineage_beryllium. Also, you might have to change paths to some of the files, like in case of Lineage OS, the common phone file resides in the vendor/lineage folder, and in case of extended, it lies in the vendor/extended version directory. Then also you will have to change the Android products. So in this sense, this is Lineage OS, which is called this lineage_beryllium. And the lunch choices. So I'll come to what the user debug and engineering build mean, and what lunch is. So in case of extended, they would just be called extended_ the phone, the device code. Yeah, and okay, so these are the changes that you will have to make before you start compiling a ROM, in case you are using some other ROM's trees. So if you're done with that, once you're done with that, you just start compiling. So I'll let you know how to compile in a while, how you go about compiling in a while. So this is basically how the Android or the extended source code looks. There are multiple folders here. So we would be looking at the hardware folder. So if you own a Pixel or any other Google device, they just released their there's something called HAL, HAL. It stands for Hardware Abstraction Layer. So HAL is basically a standardized implementation that lies between the kernel and the higher level of apps or the applications. If you would like, there's a picture on I don't know why this yeah, so this is how you would show, or this is how the Android architecture is basically laid. These are our apps and frameworks. This is the lowest level, that is the Linux kernel. The HAL basically sits in between the Linux kernel and all the other applications and servers and all that stuff. These again help the hardware. You'll probably be knowing that the Linux kernel helps the hardware interact with the software. So HALs just standardize the implementation, so it becomes simpler for manufacturers to do that. So in case if you're compiling for a Google phone, Google just releases all their HALs with the Android open source project. So if there is something wrong, you would probably looking in the hardware/QCOM folder. That's how I call it a CQOM. If you have any other, if you have a device that belongs to any other manufacturer, you would have to wait for Qualcomm to release these HALs. So Qualcomm releases or uploads their HALs on the Code Aurora forums. So yeah, you basically have to wait for them to release their HALs, and this is placed in the QCOM-CAF folder in all ROMs. So this is a kind of standard. So if you take a look inside anything, you have three folders, which are audio, display, and media. The display contains the display HALs, or something that would let you control your device's display, like changing brightness and all that stuff. Audio is again making your speaker work. Audio is audio. And sorry, I'm a bit bad at explaining, but so again, these are categorized in according to the processor you have. So STM845, like I told you, Snapdragon 845. Before STM845, I think before Snapdragon 845 it was called MSM. So Qualcomm changed the naming scheme. So you would have, if you have an older SoC, you would probably have to find out which SoC you have and look into the respective folder. And again, past 855 was, if I'm not wrong, past 855 they've again changed the naming scheme to be called as SM8XXX. So this will vary depending on the hardware you have, but the takeaway is, if there's something wrong with your display not working, or you're unable to change your brightness, or any of display related or audio related stuff, you probably have to come back here and see what's wrong. Okay, so then say you want to compile your kernel using a different tool chain. So I'm not really sure if you guys know how to compile a kernel, but to compile a kernel you basically need something called a tool chain. You also need a cross compiler. Since you're compiling on Linux on a x86-64 platform, and your kernel actually has to run on ARM processor, so you need a cross compiler as well. So all those stuffs are present in the pre-builds folder. So if you use GCC, there's a folder called GCC. If you prefer using Clang, then even that is present here. Then the different versions of Clang. The latest one that Google recently released was Clang 12. Before it was Clang 11. So these are all the releases of Clang 11. Then so if everything is fine, you probably want to start compiling your ROM now. So how do you compile a ROM? So in the build directory, there's a file called or executable file called env setup, which is environment setup. So this sets up your environment for this sets up the environment in the terminal, so that you could you can execute commands that you would otherwise not be able to. So a while back I told that we would be taking a look at what these common choices stand for. So basically, to start compiling, you would have to launch the ROM name, or whatever name the ROM uses, underscore the device code name, followed by the what kind of build you want it to be. So in this case, you would just do launch. Since you already changed it here, here to extended underscore Beryllium hyphen user or user debug or engineer, you just uh, put that in and start compiling for that. So what's the difference between a user debug and an engineer build, you would ask? So the user builds are basically what your phones ship with. They are completely stable. They hardly have any debugging capabilities. They are basically production ready. User debug builds have some additional have some debugging enabled by default. So those are useful when you initially make builds so that you can get logs and exactly come to know what's wrong. The last kind of build is a engineering build. In case of an engineering build, you're basically building a completely beta, I would say beta version. Even though it's not exactly beta, it's as good as a beta version. Your SC Linux policies are weakened. You have all debugging access, and it's basically a development build. Yeah, so then once you execute the launch command, I can actually show it to you. Yeah, so once you execute the launch command, it will come here to this function, and it will check if you have given the device in the choice. So if you have not given anything, it will basically print the menu. That this is basically the function that does it. If you know shell scripting, you probably will be able to understand this file. Yeah, so if you have given the device along with the build type that you want to build, it will export a few environment variables. Yeah, it would export a few environment variables, set the variant which is basically vanilla or GApps variant. Vanilla doesn't come pre-installed with GApps or pre-compiled with GApps, whereas the GApps variant will have GApps. So GApps are Google apps. These are closed source components that Google. These are closed source apps. These are apps like your Google Phone, Google Messenger, Gmail, Google Play Store, Google Camera, and all those kinds of apps. So yeah, basically after it exports all those files, it will start it'll set all those environment files, and when you do make extended or any of that sort, it'll start compiling. So in case of extended, if you do make extended or MKA extended, it will start compiling the ROM. So if you just want to say compile the updater app, you would just do MKA updater followed by MKA space followed by the app name. So if you have to compile settings, you would do MKA space settings. Similarly, I also missed out a point. So if say you cloned all of the source code, but you accidentally deleted a folder. So if you just do repo sync again, it will sync all the files, all the folders. But if you would just like to clone any one particular folder, you could look what its name is. So in this case, say I want to reclone the pre-builds, the tools directory in the pre-builds directory. So I would just do repo sync followed by the name of the project. So in this case, it will be repo sync platform hyphen pre-builds hyphen tools. Yeah, so I think I've covered how you would basically go about compiling your first Android ROM. Also, this needs your device to have at least one ROM which was previously built. If you have multiple ROMs that are currently built and maintained, I would ask you to kind of use Lineage OS trees, because they are pretty stable and they mostly don't have any sort of junk in them. If you don't have device trees, extracting and making your own device trees from your device would actually be out of the scope of this session. So yeah, that is one thing that would be required for your device to have. Also, I was not checking the chat, so if there are any questions, yeah, there are no questions. Okay, so yeah, so I think this is pretty much how you would go about compiling your first Android ROM. If you have any questions, you can ask. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, cool, no issues. Also, since you said you have a Samsung phone, I am very. I don't think it would have many custom ROMs, if it has any. That is. Uh, Themes are not exactly custom ROMs, so basically, yeah, you would. A custom ROM is basically a whole new operating system. So you'd have to wipe out your previous operating system in order for you to install this one. So yeah. Yeah. Also, if your device doesn't boot for some reason or something like that, you would, or if you're facing too many SC policy issues, you probably want to try building a permissive build. So you could just Google how to build a permissive build. I mean, I could tell you right now, but I don't think it makes sense. But anyways, you just add this line. Okay, let me show it to you in my actual device. Yeah, so if you wanted to boot your kernel or your ROM in permissive mode, you basically just add port underscore kernel underscore cmt line plus equal to android boot dot sc linux equal to permissive. Also, you could just copy and paste it at the end where the flag was first defined or initialized. Also, you could you shouldn't, but for debugging purposes, you can set the SE Linux never allows flag to true. So in some cases you might actually need this flag if you have some feature in the ROM that probably needs to ignore some kind of SE policies, but that could again have security consequences if there's an exploit available, but that is a whole new topic. Yeah, so I think I'm done for whatever I had planned to show for this session. So if you guys have any more doubts, I'll could probably ask them, and I'll be here. Oh, so I have been flashing ROMs since 8th or ninth standard. So yeah, I was not compiling them, but I was just flashing them. So back then I had a Nexus 7, which unfortunately I heartbreaked. I mean, it was not exactly my fault, but let's just say it got heartbreaked. Yeah, so since then I was always interested in custom ROMs, and so I then got in contact with with a developer that made ROMs for my device. Back then I did not have good enough hardware to build ROMs, so I would just go on to GitHub and see these trees and stuff, and I asked him some basic questions. Then later last year, when I was in my first semester, I started compiling, and I probably got my first bootable build in last Jan or Feb. So it's been like 1 year or something at this point. But then open source projects and something like custom ROMs and Android customizations always interested me. So yeah, that's how I got into it. Oh, and one of the other reasons was Motorola denied the second generation of Moto E to get the Nougat update from no Marshmallow update from Lollipop, and even though they had promised it, and that pissed me off. So yeah, that's how that was one of the reasons why I flashed a custom ROM. Yeah, so yeah, correct. If I recall correctly, in October 2014 or something, Lenovo acquired Motorola, and then 2015 they released E2, promising a Marshmallow update, but they never lived up to that promise, and that pissed me off, and that's when I actually got into flashing custom ROMs. Okay, so flashing. Okay, so I probably have. If you successfully compile the ROM, you'll probably have an out folder which has all kind of logs and stuff. So I'm sorry, my mouse might be irritating. I'll use my trackpad. Yeah, so basically you have a zip file. So this contains this boot image is basically the kernel. So it contains all these sorts of compressed files. So it also contains a file called update a script and update two files, update a script and update a binary. So you need something called a custom recovery. I'm not sure if you have ever booted into the recovery of your phone, but there's on all phones there's a hardware key combination that would let or help you to boot into the recovery. So you need a custom recovery in order to flash or install ROMs. This custom recovery helps you to wipe your current operating system files, the system files, the vendor files, and all that stuff. Yeah, so like I showed you in the device tree, this contains the path to that specific partition of your flash storage. It will then extract one of these files. So in this case, it's a system transfer list. Like I said, these are all archived files, so it'll extract the file, and then it will like how you would burn a USB with the ISO. It does something similar to that. Not exactly that, but something similar to that. Uh, ISO is an archive. It's a file format. It's a file format that represents an archived file. I think you were present in the Linux session. So in that session, we burnt the Ubuntu ISO onto the USB pen drive. So what in that case, what a tool like Rufus would do is write the contents of the ISO file as is. So since it's it's an archived format, I'm not sure if I can show that to you now, but yeah. So yeah, correct. So like I said, an ISO is a compressed file format. So like you can see, it has a a boot folder, a EFI, and the operating system folder. So the tool would write these sets of files as is to the USB drive and update the boot partition table there. In case of Android, you'd basically take the archived files, extract it, and install it to the specific partition. Uh, in this case, it's /dev block boot device and by name system. So this is when you actually reboot your phone, this is where the bootloader would look for the operating system files, and since these files are written there, it would put into your new operating system. Okay, so uh, you so few years back, a couple of years back, there was some you probably heard of something called BIOS, correct? BIOS, basic input output. Yeah, so uh, yeah. So a couple of years back, there was something called BIOS, which today is called Legacy BIOS, and UEFI is basically like a newer version, but it does not replace BIOS per se. So the newer hardware devices have, like Anirudh in the session explained, have a boot partition called the /boot/EFI partition. So all your boot files go in that partition. I mean, not really sure how I can explain. It would probably be better off asking Anirudh this question, because he would be able to help you better in this case. Okay. Uh, there's Nitish as well. So then I probably should stop the recording then. Yeah, if you guys, yeah, cool.